And we say, welcome, Ms. Gomez. Thank you so much for making the time. And also, thank you for committing to part 2 so that we can actually bear down on some of these topics a little more. But let's start off from brass tacks, thanks. What is the role of the Conciliation and Advocacy Division?
All right. Well, the role of the Conciliation, Advisory, and Advocacy Division, a big name, yes. The principal function, I should say, its core function is maintaining industrial peace or managing labor conflict under the parameters of the Industrial Relations Act. We do that through our conciliatory process and procedures. And we also, in terms of, when we say managing labor conflict, in terms of disputes that are reported, because the disputes are reported to the Minister of Labor, and we accept trade disputes from under other related pieces of legislation. You'll have not only the Industrial Relations Act, but the Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act, the Minimum Wages Act, Maternity Protection Act, Supplemental Police Act. So those are the other related pieces of legislation that are receive trade disputes that are reported to the minister.
Now, when you talk about all these acts and the laws and legislation, it make me want to ask whether or not any of these things are time-bound. Is it that someone can say, you do me this 57 years ago, and I never like it, so reporting it? No. Is there statute of limitations on these things?
I'm glad you raised that, because there is a statutory time frame, and we want the workers in Trinidad and Tobago to be aware of that. If there's a grievance, your grievance is only alive for 6 months. 6 months from the date the issue given rise first arose. So therefore, if you sit on your matter for a year, 2 years, and then you want to come forward, you know, there could be some challenges associated with that. So there's a 6-month time frame, and within that 6 months, you have 2 months if you wish to take up your matter formally through a trade union. You have 2 months to become a member in good standing. So workers in Trinidad and Tobago, you know, this is knowledge that you need to be aware of.
And what triggers the start of that 6 months? Is it that I lodge a formal complaint with my direct supervisor, or is it that I need to go through HR for the company? What starts the clock on that 6 months?
If there's an issue, we would hope that there is a grievance procedure within most organizations, that there's someone you can go to, either your direct supervisor first before it escalates to go up the ladder. But if you have an issue on the job, the first step is you must grieve. And there should be a grievance procedure, disciplinary procedure, all those procedures that employers need to have on the workplace, so workers will know, hey, if there's a problem, who do I go to? Do I go to the HR? Do I go to my supervisor first? So based on the type of organization, they may have different reporting structures. So therefore, the worker should be aware of the steps that he ought to take. If it's a unionized environment, there's a branch officer in that environment. So you have to go through this step, and if it cannot be resolved at that stage, then it escalates further to the point where it reaches us, it reaches the Minister of Labor. All right, so there are steps, and we call that, you know, you have your grievance procedure, then you have discussions either with the employee and the employers. You have bilateral discussions to try to resolve an issue before it reaches outside of the framework of the organization.
And I appreciate the fact that you said that the division can actually work in proxy of the minister. And with that, I want you to explain a little more. Give us some of the responsibilities of the division. Thanks.
All right, if you're looking at responsibilities, the responsibilities are wide and varied, and sometimes we do things that are even outside of our responsibility. In terms of, once it's, you know, just assisting, you know, it's just like promoting a sense of an alternative measure in terms of reducing conflict within the workplace. So what we do, we promote awareness. Whether it's within employers, we do a lot of outreach exercises. We customize training to suit. If there's a particular need within an organization, they would call us and make arrangements, find out what their needs are. We do customized training. We do it with the trade unions. We have an advisory role. Then we have whether it's through our online clients or walk-in clients, or well now because of restrictions with COVID, we have our online facilities. We also, well, our primary function is really conciliating in trade disputes, right? So when trade disputes are reported to the minister and we act under delegated authority, the minister delegates his authority to us and we act on his behalf in terms of conciliating in trade disputes that are reported to him.
Now, in the same manner that we're not going to talk about vaccinations this evening, we are not going to talk about the role of tripartism. But what I want to ask, though, you said sometimes you actually go beyond what may be the written mandate, or but at the same time, what does day-to-day work at the division look like? Who are some of those individuals that come in? What are some of the operations that you see on a very regular basis?
All right, now we have over 42 active trade unions that report trade disputes. And we have a hard-working staff. They're very hard-working, and we have a shortage of staff right now. So instead of the 31, established positions that we have just 16 officers that function throughout Trinidad and Tobago as well. So day-to-day, phone calls, the phone never stop ringing. We answer queries from employers who need advice, workers who need advice. Then we do virtual meetings. All our meetings are virtual now. So we have, from the time we come in, meetings are booked at 10. So you find that we are totally booked for meetings. Then we have our outreach sessions that we do simultaneously with the meetings, because we try to maintain a presence, even though we are very, like our schedules are so tightly bound, but we still try to maintain our outreach, because it's important that we have a presence, and people really need to have information. Because one of the things that we do as well is to process, we spoke about statute of limitations and matters that are statute barred, and the Industrial Relations Act, Chapter 8801, it makes provision for, under pursuant to Section 51(3), where trade unions could apply, or employers too, they could apply for an extension of time in any matter that is statute barred. So once the minister sees that it's just, it's a process that we go through. We have a policy that we are guided by a policy document, and so submissions are made and a recommendation is made to grant or not grant. So that is one aspect of, now when we spoke earlier about trade disputes, conciliating in trade disputes, we have rights disputes and we have interest disputes. And when we say interest disputes, we focus on like collective bargaining. It's disputes that would arise out of the collective bargaining environment where there's a recognized majority union, and it may be violation of or breaches of terms and conditions of employment as laid out in their collective agreement. So the work is complex, it is intriguing, it is exciting, because you never know what you're going to face when you walk in a room, because you're not aware of what the dispute is until you reach in the room and you hear submissions from parties. So part of the requirement of the job is that really you grow yourself, or you develop self-development. You read judgments, some Court of Appeal judgments, High Court judgments, Industrial Court judgments. So you have to be aware of when a particular topic is raised, how you will guide parties, because that's your role. When you come in and it's like you're meeting the minister, so you're supposed to have the knowledge and or I should say superior knowledge, where you're able to guide the parties. Look, this is what the court is saying. You do reality testing. You sure you want to take this matter down to the court? But we face challenging times now, because like I said, I was in discussion. I say in managing the division, there are issues that are arising that none of my predecessors would have ever faced before.
And that is one of the things we want to talk about when we come back from the break. But Ms. Gomez, it sounds as though, yes, you're talking about the job and you're giving us the information, but you're also putting in a plug, because from some of the points that I'm getting, you have about half the complement of staff, so you have the vacancies. exciting times. You get the opportunity for self-development, and we will also be speaking about how it is people contact the division when we return. We are speaking with Chief Labor Relations Officer Sabina Gomez, and we are going to be coming back with so much more. Stay with us. Welcome back to In Depth with me, Dike Rostant, where we are speaking about conciliation, advisory, and advocacy division with the Chief Labor Relations Officer, Sabina Gomez. Now, Ms. Gomez, it would have been said, and I guess kind of covertly, but this is a division of the Ministry of Labor. How does it fit into the general scheme of things?
Well, it's a division. Well, we have labor administration, and under labor administration, you have units and divisions, and conciliation is one of them. We have the manpower division. You would have spoken to Ms. Abraham, and then we have the labor inspectorate unit. We have international affairs unit. So all of these HIV/AIDS, all of these units fall under labor administration and labor. I forget the other name of the unit, but
and moving forward though, because we've spoken about we've laid the groundwork, and definitely in part two we'll be speaking about some other things. But in terms of specifics though, one of the things is the objectives of the National Workplace Policy on Sexual Harassment Project. What is that project about? Give us a little history of it, and what does it hope to do?
All right. Well, there's a National Workplace Policy on Sexual Harassment in Trinidad and Tobago. And, you know, this came about because I think the government wanted to establish zero tolerance for sexual harassment in the workplace. This is, you know, a really topical issue. It's also a touchy issue. The national policy is set aside to the objectives, you know, to define what sexual harassment is, to provide a framework for to give guidance to employers and employees, to promote and to educate the population, the workforce, in terms of what is sexual harassment, how they can report it, how it can be prevented in the workplace. So it's a whole awareness campaign that the ministry is going to be launching soon. And I would say that we also have recently established a helpline for persons. You know, you may not want to come in, but you can call in and somebody will be there to take your call and give you advice. We hope to get that on stream sometime coming in January. So the policy also sets the framework for legislation in terms of, I know there's a draft legislation. It's not under our purview, but it's there. And I guess it will come forth sometime in the near future.
But in terms of coming forth in the near future, I think it's so important that you start from a point of being able to articulate exactly what it is you're thinking about, or what it is meant, the definition of sexual harassment. Because for some people it might be all fun and games, it's just a little joke. You're saying something around the water cooler. But for someone else who may have had different experiences, that is life and death hangs in a balance. So when we define sexual harassment, or is it sexual harassment in the workplace, what kind of narrative or terminology are we using, Ms. Gomez?
Sexual harassment, it could be any physical, non-physical, non-verbal conduct of a sexual nature that is unwanted, unwelcome, you know, the word offensive to the person who is receiving the how should I say, what's the word, who is receiving all this
the target of it?
Yes. You know, so all those things, it's really offensive to the person. And that is what separates it from normal harassment, is the sexual nature of it. Right? So that is one way of defining it. And one of the things that the policy does, it defines it, because, you know, some people say, well, it's our culture, you know, if you give pecan, so that means I can't tell somebody that they're looking nice. Or what if I pay you a compliment? You know, how will that be taken? You know, and one of the things, you know, that three things go together: communication, culture, and conflict. You know, what may be somebody may pass and they may touch and say, how you going? And that may be fine. And then you go and you touch somebody else and they find it offensive. So therefore, there has to be measures put in place in the workplace to say what is acceptable and what is not.
And I like the fact that you speak about measures in the workplace, because yes, this may be a national policy, but is it that different workplaces need to sign on to it collectively, or is it that because it's something that is a national policy, it applies wherever someone is?
Right.
So what's the ministry's role in this as well?
So the ministry's role is to sensitize employers. You know, this is your responsibility. You must have a policy. And if you have a policy, and not having the policy, yes, but it should start from your orientation. You're bringing in workers into your environment. You have to set the tone. You know, this is our culture. You know, we don't want, this is not acceptable within our organization, because a simple thing, and it could reach from in-house to out, you know, to outside, and then you have your name of the company splash all over the newspaper. And, you know, sometimes your brand is ruined because of things like that. People would say, who want to go, you know, these are the people you hire. And sometimes, you know, what I want to say as well, the policy speaks about a lot of things, including false allegations. I want to bring that in because, you know, human nature, you know, people could bring a false claim against someone, and, you know, that could cause damage to life, reputation, ruin, marriages, family life could be broken up because of a false claim. So one of the things we stress in the policy is that there must be a dedicated person within any organization. You need to have a dedicated person that someone could go to and make a complaint. The policy gives guidelines. We have a grievance procedure. We have that you can. So we have a little bit of everything, so that if you're an employer and you don't want to start from scratch, you can just go to the policy and pull out and create one policy of your own. But you must orient your workers, and we are always ready and willing to do. We have well, now we have webinar series that we're about to start, and that's part of our communications plan.
And you know, in that communication plan, you also tell us about the helpline, please, because we have about just a minute more.
Well, we have the helpline that is coming on stream. I said we hope to have it fully on stream in January, when we will get our complement of staff. We hope that citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, you know, they will feel comfortable to call the helpline. Number is 800. I'm giving the number. It's already established in our policy. But, you know, I don't want to preempt anything, but we are hoping that for come January, it will be on stream, and we'll have the support staff and the staff to fully man the helpline, so that it provide an area of relief for citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, you know, and that is the goal is to of legislation and policy, national policy, to really meet the needs of the population at any point in time. So this is what the policy hopes to address, so that persons could feel comfortable in the workplace, because, you know, coming out of that is another big topic we call, you know, mental health in the workplace, because it can affect your mental health as well.
Definitely, and that is one of those things that we'd want to be speaking about the next time we have this conversation. I'm so glad that you're already committed to having a part 2. Ms. Sabina Gomez, and we want to thank you on behalf of the entire TTT News team for joining us. I'm Dike Rostant. This has been In Depth.